Hi, I'm Kamali. You're watching Newsfeed from my apartment. Here's a look at some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world. The modern day space race is ongoing as SpaceX looks to make history. Has the pandemic brought about the rise of the machines faster than expected? A Syrian man rediscovers some of the history of his land. And the video which tells the story of the bear, the boy, and the mountain. Well, top of our newsfeed, the modern space race. Elon Musk's company is about to make history by being the first commercial company to send human beings to the International Space Station. It's a huge step forward in the space race, but Elon Musk is not the only business leader who's looking to the stars.
And liftoff, the rise of Starliner.
And liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis. On the shoulders of the space shuttle, America will continue the dream.
Well, in the middle of the last century, the United States and the Soviet Union tried to outdo each other with their achievements in space. This century, the field of nations sending people and machines into space has widened. Here's Louis.
All aboard. 2 newcomers are ready to go to Mars this summer. China is going ahead with its first mission to Mars with a launch planned for July, sending both an orbiter and a rover to explore it. And the United Arab Emirates has also turned its eyes onto the Red Planet, planning to send a spacecraft into orbit soon. It is the first Arab country to attempt a planetary mission, and comes after sending its first astronaut to the International Space Station for an 8-day trip last year.
Our science mission is to produce the first ever truly global picture of the Martian atmosphere. This is the first holistic study of the Martian climate and how the layers of its atmosphere fit together.
Meanwhile, the US, which has already launched multiple missions to Mars, is embarking on an ambitious plan to collect rock samples from the planet and bring them back to Earth. There is growing competition in constructing space stations too. The current International Space Station is a multinational project between 5 participating space agencies: the US, Russia, Canada, Japan, and the European Space Agency. Russia is planning to create its own orbital space station and winged crew spacecraft. China is aiming to complete work on its space station within about 2 years, seeking cooperation from space agencies in Europe and elsewhere. China has so far been banned from space cooperation due to US national security concerns, eliminating it from being a part of the International Space Station. The global COVID-19 pandemic has affected some plans. The European and Russian ExoMars mission has missed its launch window this year. And Indian spacemen have been in lockdown since March. Therefore, astronauts are back in training in Moscow for the Gaganyaan project, India's first manned mission to space.
All right, well, back on Earth, we'll keep spinning around the world for some other stories that you need to know this Wednesday. Research from Australia has found the number of people dying from factors related to the warming planet are being underreported. A team from the Australian National University found that heat-related mortality rates in the country could be as high as 2% of all deaths. Current records put heat-related deaths at just 0.1%. Twitter has finally started letting its users know when Donald Trump tells a lie. A tweet he sent out with incorrect assertions about the safety of voting by post was determined to be false by the Twitter fact-checkers, and users were offered the facts about mail-in ballots. Now, once you click on that prompt, you were taken to a page which tells you why Trump was lying and gives you the facts about voting by post. After this, Trump rage tweeted, complaining that Twitter was interfering in the election and that he would do something about it. This is Hana Kimura, and she was a professional wrestler and was on a Netflix show called Terrace House Tokyo. She killed herself after being abused and harassed by people online. In response, Japan's government now say they may bring in laws which will make it easier to identify people who make hateful comments online and then follow up with prosecution. South Korea is also considering a similar law. And this is the new book by J.K. Rowling. It's called The Ichabog, and she'll be publishing it chapter by chapter on its own website, theichabog.com. She also says she wants readers to help with the illustrations for the print copy of the book, which is due out later in the year. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to the loss of jobs for millions of people, and in some industries, robots have begun picking up the slack. Now, we've learned for years that one day machines would replace humans, but has COVID-19 hastened that future?
Has the pandemic spurred humanity towards artificial intelligence? With the aim of minimising human contact and reducing the risk of health workers contracting the coronavirus, robots are increasingly in use. They've been praised as heroes for helping to manage the COVID-19 outbreak. They're disinfecting surfaces, taking temperatures, transporting food, and delivering medical supplies. And as companies restructure their workplaces, futurologists predict a hybrid labour force of robots and humans.
There's something that we call cobots, which are cooperative robots. And these are robots which can work hand in hand with humans. In a factory setting, robots used to be behind the cage. They had to be isolated from humans because of concerns about safety. But cooperative robots, or cobots, can work very closely with humans and can work very closely in automated work processes. And so as we get back to the factory and deal with social distancing, we're going to see the arrival and implementation of a lot more cobots within the factory setting.
The global unemployment rates have been rising due to lockdowns, and many workplaces have had to adapt to new technologies. According to the media company The Robot Report, there's been a surge in interest and sales of robotics.
There are a lot of manufacturing organizations realizing as we return to work, they've got to get their orders in for these cooperative robots. They've got to have an implementation plan. They've got to have a pathway to re-engineer their manufacturing workplace to align to this new safety distance protocol manufacturing process that they need to put in place. So the biggest challenge might actually be for organizations to get their hands on the necessary robots in order to move forward. Who would have thought?
Many people are concerned that corporations will replace human workers with AI, especially after the evolution of robotics in recent years. Not only can they walk, robots can run very fast. They can also pick fruit and even herd sheep. But despite being able to do that and more, scientists say robots are far from ready to take over, as currently they perform only routine tasks and mostly in controlled environments.
Technology as a negative thing, and I actually spoke about the perception that people had about robots by going back to popular mechanics magazine, science magazines. in the 1930s when the concept of robots was first appearing, and they ran big, scary headlines that giant robot brains are going to take away our jobs. I think we saw that in the last couple of years with some of the hysteria around artificial intelligence. There's always a belief by people when a new technology or an existing technology speeds up that it's going to have a negative impact. It's going to take away our jobs. It's going to make us all irrelevant. And that's not really the case at all. Any new technology simply changes the way we do things. It becomes a part of our life rather than replacing our life.
All right, let's take a look at some COVID-19 related stories that you may have missed. Well, this was filmed by a French charity near Antibes on the south coast of France. As you can see, the seafloor is littered with COVID-19 related waste, face masks and gloves. The pandemic will have a damaging effect on global efforts to try and reduce plastic waste, as many people now find it necessary to use single-use items. This is Sonia Savage. She is a minister in local government in Canada, and she said the pandemic lockdown is a good time to complete the building of a pipeline that carries oil, as people won't be able to protest it. Greta Thunberg saw the comments and tweeted this: "At least we are now seeing some honesty. This is how large parts of the world are run." Well, this is Daniel Abt. He was a racing driver for Audi, but they fired him because he got a pro gamer to race for him during a charity event at the weekend. An online race called Race at Home Challenge was held to raise money for UNICEF. In an apology video, Daniel Abt said he asked Lorenz Herzig to race for him to show how good gamers are at games. The race was meant to be only for actual racing drivers. Well, now we can go to Syria to see how a man who was building a shelter for his family to shelter them from the war discovered some history.
It's a deep descent for Syrian interior designer Abdelmu'ti Saeed. But this cave contains a treasure trove almost destroyed by the Syrian war. Some of the items include chairs and stools that Saeed carved himself. Other items Saeed collected. They date back hundreds of years.
The things in the cave are ancient Oriental items that were used 100 or 200 years ago. There are items made of copper and wool, and ones made of wood and pottery.
Saeed had to flee his home on the western side of Aleppo province. He dug this cave in the town of Akrabat, close to the Turkish border, to protect himself from regime and Russian air raids.
This is a ceramic lantern used for walking at night. We put it here like this, and then we light it.
After a ceasefire was reached in northern Syria in March, Saeed decided to convert the cave into a makeshift museum. He's used his knowledge of interior design to display his collection. He wants Syrians to learn about their culture and history. Young people are regular visitors.
The cave was dug in about 1.5 months. Since I work in the field of decoration and have an artistic mindset and experience in this field, I tried to use my work experience and transform this cave into an Oriental heritage museum.
For these Syrians who have survived a decade of war, this museum offers a chance to remember a time before the violence and reminds them of who they are and where they come from.
And last up, some video from Italy which shows how to behave if you meet a massive bear on a mountain. Well, the boy you can see slowly and calmly walking away from that bear is Alessandro Breda. The video was filmed by Loris Calari, who then put it on Twitter, where it's been watched and shared millions of times. Now, Alessandro said he was so chill about the encounter because he just watched a video on YouTube on how to behave if you meet a bear in the wild. No sudden movements. And that is it. Do stay at home and stay safe. You can get in touch with me. You'll find me at Kamali Melbourne on Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for being with us, and I'll see you again tomorrow.